Back on the Tony Wood episode, I talked about how I had recorded a handful of episodes like 4 years ago when I was originally thinking of starting this podcast. And one of those episodes was with someone who was instrumental in my story. In fact, Stacey was the one who set up the songwriting session that would eventually become Let My Life Be Worship, that was recorded by Bethel Music and Jen Johnson, which was my first real cut in Christian music. So much has happened since this episode, but I wanted to pull it out of the archives and share it with you this week because I love what Stacey shares about how to stay unjaded in Christian music after 25 years as one of the top publishers in Christian music history. I hope you enjoy this episode with my friend Stacey Willbur. Today's guest, I'm so excited to have her with us. She's a world famous publisher and a champion of so many people. If it wasn't for Stacey, I wouldn't be where I am. What's so beautiful about her is she is a lover of people and someone who is always looking to influence people with the Spirit of God, with the kingdom and the Word of God. And so welcome, Stacey Willbur.
Thank you for having me. It was such a kind intro and actually made me tear up a little bit. I just am so honored to do what I do and honored to be a part of this podcast. And I'm excited just to talk to you.
It's funny because I was just thinking this morning, I apologize in advance, guys listening. This is going to sound creepy, but then I'm going to explain it. We technically met indirectly through Craigslist. And before
We
Kristen
did.
and I moved here, we felt really strongly stirred and pulled in the direction of Nashville. And so this one day after I felt like God really had said clearly, like, guys, you need to head that direction, I thought, well, there's probably like 500 million worship leaders in Nashville, so I'm not going to do that anymore. So I was on Craigslist looking for like truck driver jobs, drywall installer, things like that. Wasn't even looking at music stuff. I see paid apprenticeship. We, ended up on a phone call and I almost
Almost came my apprentice.
apprentice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Holy Spirit was like, no. It's so funny because I mean, I remember it so clearly talking to you. I think I was on a train on the way to San Diego and you were on your way to Nashville.
I was in Nashville.
You were in Nashville. And I just remember thinking this guy is so talented and would have been honored to have you as my apprentice. But I kept thinking, the Lord was like, nope, there's a different direction for him. And this will keep him from doing what he's called to do. It was hard for me to tell you, I'm sorry, we're choosing somebody else. But now seeing where everything is now, it's like, okay, yes, that was the best decision. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to just allow people to get to know you a little bit. Like, I want to go back to how you ended up caring about music in the first place, how you ended up in
yeah.
Nashville. If you wouldn't mind, like, just
I
giving
give you
us
a
the
short
snapshot of
I'll
that.
give you the
Yeah.
short version. So I grew up in Michigan. It's a really small town of 750 people and 749 because I have moved away. No one leaves my little town, but grew up in a farm, grew up listening to lots of different music, but country music was kind of our jam. We used to go to a lot of concerts, shows to see lots of different country music artists. And then when I think it was 8 when we first started coming to Nashville for Fanfare, which is now called CMA Week. So as a little girl, I loved coming to the shows and standing in the back and getting autographs and I just fell in love with country music, but music in general. I mean, there are a lot of different pop artists that I loved, Motown artists like Diana Ross, and there's a girl named Melissa Manchester, which is so funny now because she was a huge pop artist in the 70s, and we are now really good friends. I call her my California mom. I've got lots of stories like that, but it's just funny how I don't know where it came from. I just loved music. I would spend my days school and be outdoors, and then at night I would go down to our basement and listen to music and look at whether it was an album or a CD, and you're reading the liner notes of who wrote the song, who was doing BGVs, who was playing the drums. And I just loved and consumed that growing up. And so when I got into college, I kept saying, I'm going to move to Nashville. I'm going to move to Nashville after I graduate. And everyone, my college friends were just here a couple weeks ago, and we had lots of tears because I said I was going to do something and I did it. It was my dream, and I didn't just let it be my dream, but I went for it. And I think I moved to Nashville in 94. I had no money. I knew nobody except one person who I was actually in her fan club. Her name's Judy Rodman. She was a country artist at the time, and she was a writer for Warner Chappell. She said, "Well, if you come to Nashville, look me up and I'll take you to lunch," and I moved to Nashville on August 25th, 1994, and she was my first lunch. She was writing that day with a famous writer named Dave Loggins. So not only I had lunch with Judy Broadman, but also Dave Loggins. And anyway, that's how I got here. I always tell the story, like I had a the Judds were I always said they were mentors in my life, but they were the artists that I wanted to that they kinda helped ignite the flame in my heart of wanting to move here. And so Winona from her shows used to say, "Let my dream become your dream." If I can come from a small town in Kentucky and a poor town and I can do my dream, so can you. And I had that plastered in my room in Michigan. And I love that I just kept that dream in my heart and moved to Nashville. I taught school for a year. On the weekends when I wasn't teaching school, I was on the road with different artists, helping them with everything that they could need, like merch selling and helping with sound and all those things. And so that just led into a job on Music Row for the summer as a receptionist. And, I always tell the girls that I mentor, like, it wasn't my dream job to be a receptionist, but I was the best front desk girl on Music Row. And because of that, I met a lot of people, which then led to my first publishing job at EMI Christian, which is now Capital. And had I not been the amazing person that you see when you first walk in, I may not have had the opportunity for that job. So a guy named Grant Cunningham was the person that I met. He said, "Hey, there's a job opening at EMI. You should check it out." So that's kind of where I first got my start, was in Christian music. And I was a brand new Christian, so I didn't really know a whole lot about the industry, but I loved songs. And then that's what I knew that I loved. I didn't know that there was a job for it.
And you mentioned that was the 90s, so that must have been during the time of like cassette tapes and CDs. What was it
CDs.
like starting out in publishing with that era?
Yeah, it was a really sweet time. One of the things that I remember about EMI Christian was we started worship together. Our publishing crew is the one that started that and got to see kind of the birth of this new wave of worship music with Chris Tomlin. We signed Chris Tomlin and Matt Redman, and we were working with Delirious, all these legends now, which back then nobody even knew who they were. And so it was such an honor to be a part of that season of growing that and just kind of watching God use worship together to teach these worship pastors and worship leaders and songwriters how to lead these songs in their churches. It was such a new thing in that season, but it was so much fun. Like I said, I just love to not only listen to these songs, but then also get to experience them, whether they're on the radio or going to shows, and to think, oh, I get to be a part of that process.
You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but has there ever been a time in your career where, I don't know, it can feel a little like there's a song that everyone knows the artist, they know maybe even the songwriters, but they don't realize that in Brentwood, Tennessee, Stacey Willbur put those people together. You know what I mean? Does that ever
Yes.
get lonely or feel invisible?
Oftentimes, the publisher is the one that probably gets thanked the least amount, because you even watch award shows and artists will think if it's Song of the Year, the artist is thanking the songwriter, if they thank the songwriter and the label, but we're a special breed, publishers. And I think we chose this job because all of us like to be behind the scenes. I mean, even just doing this podcast, I'm doing more of them, but it definitely is a little bit out of my comfort zone because I do like to be behind the scenes. When great things happen, it's like I always say it takes a village. It's never that one person doing it on their own. There's always a huge village of people that have helped. I mean, I can't do what I'm doing by myself. I have interns working with me and I try to make sure weekly at some point I'm thanking them for all their hard work for what they're doing to help our company do what we need to do because I can't do it by myself.
Earlier, you mentioned what it was like signing unheard artists who are now legends, right?
Mhm.
So here we are, fast forward. What are some ways that artists that have been doing it for a while, even though maybe at some point their fame slash the amount of people they can fit into arena slash the amount of streams or records may fade or dwindle out, but what are some ways that artists who are looking for a way to continue to give back can?
Yeah, I think it's like this for all of us. When you get older, I think God kind of says, all right, you've walked this journey. Now, how are you going to give back? Seth Mosley and I used to talk about it all the time. How do we give back now? What do we do with the knowledge that we've gained as we've been in this industry for a long time? How do we take time for that? And I think that's mentoring people. I think if we've been doing this for a little while, then it's time to not let go of the reins specifically, but it's time to give some opportunity to share with the younger generation and to take them along and take them on tours and bring them into the writing rooms and there's so much we can learn from each other. It's one of the reasons why I have my girls group that I mentor. I mean, I feel like I learn something every single time they all come to my house, and I'm sharing with them my knowledge and being a Mama Stacy to them, so that they have somebody that when situations arise, they have somebody that they trust, that has their back, and that they know that they can come to.
If there's an artist out there that's like, I want to get out there and be on the road in the mainstream world, but I need mentorship in that. How do they seek that?
Number 1, for the younger artists to be first of all, to just be open to have mentors in their life. I think a lot of times, and we all have done it, we're young and we think we know everything. But being open to go, "Okay, you know what? I don't know everything, and I can learn something from these mentors. I can learn something from them." And so I think being open to that, asking lots of questions, and just looking for that opportunity. One of the things about mentorship, and I just remember my pastor, Alex Seeley, saying this to us, with mentorship, it's not always about sitting in a coffee shop and diving into the word, which that's amazing if you can get that time. But some of it's just living life with each other. And what does that look like? And so oftentimes my days are full. And oftentimes, if I have a songwriter or an artist that wants to ask questions or hang out, I'll say, I'm going to the grocery store. Come join me. And just having that time together, them seeing me just in daily life, I think is mentorship. Like this morning, we went for a 4-mile walk with another one of my girls, and just had good conversation, talked about the Lord and just life. To me, that's true mentorship.
After 25 years and specifically the Christian side of things, have you seen the difference it can make to have like a shepherd with you, even just on tour or doing life with you?
I would love to see more of that. I know that there's often tours in our industry that have pastors or specific people that come out that are kind of in like a pastoral role. I would love to see more of that. I think every tour needs to have some kind of pastoral role. It's tough being out on the road and you never know where you're going to be. And it's just for people that aren't in our industry, they look at it and it's the dream to have that type of a job, but it's a lot. It's tiring and you're going from one thing to another. So I just think that having someone out on the road that's there that you can bounce things off and have those devotion times. I think even if it's 5 minutes, a moment to like get into the word and put our focus back on Jesus.
We live in an interesting era. I feel like there's a lot of things happening, even just within the Christian community, where on one hand, you can look at it almost like a lot of uncertainty as to where things are headed. And
Mhm.
yet, one of the things I love about you, and you mentioned it before we started recording this episode, is just thinking outside the box, like having an inventive, optimistic sort of spirit. And you even mentioned something. I'm wondering if you would share it just about the touring outside of our genre thing. And so I'm wondering for the artists that are listening, both those that have done it for a while and they're trying to figure out what's next, or those that are just getting started and maybe have a lot of innovation or ideas or openness, what could that look like?
Yeah, I think oftentimes we think, I can't do any of this without a label or without a manager or without a publisher. In today's world, you can do all those things on your own. You don't actually need a label or a publisher. We would love to work with you and come alongside you, but I think, what is it that God's calling you to do? And if it looks like music that's in more in the secular market, whether that's country or pop, we need more of that. We need more music in the pop world that's the language is positive. I mean, it doesn't have to be straight up Christian music. It can totally be a love song. I mean, I love how Lauren Daigle has had this space of being seen in the pop world. She was just writing the music that was coming out of her heart. I don't even necessarily think at that time she was writing specifically to be in the pop market. She just was writing songs that was just coming out of her. I was talking to someone recently about what would it look like if we stepped out of the box a little bit. I think COVID helped us a little bit because it really caused everybody to go, "Ah, oh no, we have to switch gears and we have to figure out how to make money and what to do." And I think it was really, really good. But I already feel like we're kind of sliding back into that safe place again. So what would it look like if we had artists that were on the road with other country artists, or if we had artists in our industry that got on a pop tour? That would be amazing. I love thinking outside of the box. I love throwing things out there and not being afraid. I think there's trying to remember who it was that told me this. Who's the manager for Justin Bieber? I was just asking him, what's one thing that you advice that you would give me and my team? And he said, I would encourage your team every Friday to talk about what's one thing you did this week that you did afraid. What's one thing that you did that you were a little fearful of doing, but you did it anyway? Whether it was make a phone call to somebody, or pitched a song to somebody that you'd never pitched a song to, or reached out to try to have a meeting with someone. I was reading a book the other day. This one guy who was in the industry every single day for a whole entire year called this executive to have a meeting with him. And finally, after a year, he finally got the meeting with the guy. And then they became like really good friends. And so there's a persistence. What are ways to think outside the box? What are some things that we can do afraid? Do some things that are a little bit outside the box.
I just finished not long ago reading the Wrecking Crew book.
Mm,
And just like going back to that sort of mentality, it's not even trying to copy that sound from the 50s, 60s, 70s, but the mentality of what happens if we do it different rather than feeling like, well, it's supposed to sound like this because whichever gatekeeper wants this certain thing, probably.
mhm.
So much of that is in our heads, right? Like
Yeah.
as writers, as
And then it
producers, as artists, we're just imagining what people want,
And then it
you
kind of
know?
masks the creative
Yeah.
part of ourselves. And I think oftentimes I think that's why people get a little jaded
Hmm.
and people jump ship from our
Yeah.
industry because they lose that creative process.
So good.
And
Yeah.
I think it's okay to push the boundaries. And it's okay to,
Yeah.
a lot of times I'm hearing songs that it's like, oh, I've never heard that before. And it's refreshing.
Mm.
And now we're in a season where we do need radio. We do need radio. Radio is important, but there's so much music that you can listen to that's on the streaming services that we've not had
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
past.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I love it because we're talking about that in the creative space, but also logistically. Like, I love that you challenged even just thinking that way with touring and just some of the ways that we've just phoned it in. I know when I was a worship pastor, there was a season where I had been just really used to the Sundays keep coming pattern,
Mhm.
5 services a weekend, and after a while, it started to feel like I don't even need the Holy Spirit at all. I had to change it up personally, like, kind
Mhm.
of get out of that routine, and I ended up going to a really little inner city church that was all about just helping people with recovery and homeless
It's
people get
amazing.
food and whatever, and what was crazy about that? Is without even realizing it, I took that bigger, more mechanical corporate way of thinking into that little setting.
Mm.
And these were people that had been radically rescued from lives of
Wow.
things most of us would never experience or imagine. Hearing a room of 2 to 400 people sing louder than a room of 2 to 4,000 happened all the time, and I was blown away. And so what's funny though is we found, wow, we're training these people to think like a big
Mm.
church when they're this like beautiful little church that's just radically on fire. And we had to like hit reset again and just say like actually what they were doing before they had a paid professional worship staff was better for
Yeah.
their soul. And so it felt like creativity to go back to just an acoustic
Yep.
guitar with no click track
Mhm.
and just playing the songs the way people knew them. And it actually, you know what we ended up doing too is we got rid of our ears and just had floor wedges again,
Yeah.
which was like weird. It was like going back to the 90s youth group or whatever. But something about it got us re-engaged with the moment and it made us have to listen to what the Lord wanted to do in that second. And
Yeah.
it pulled us out of our mechanical routine thing.
Yep. You're telling the story, and I'm thinking of Matt Redman and The Heart of Worship. That's
Right.
basically the same, came from the same space
Hmm.
that song did. And David Smallbone and I talk about this often. What are ways in our lives that help us to not get jaded, help us to like, because we get tired. I get tired. I have moments of what am I doing and am I making a difference and is my time up? But then I think number 1 is diving into the word every single day, keeping my eyes focused on Jesus. And then number 2, I find that when I go see a show, got to go to the CMA Fest and go to the big shows with some of my friends, I left there every single night going, "Oh, this is why I do what I do. This was so amazing to be a part of as a listener." But going, now I know all these people and I'm pitching them songs and, several of them were being sung that night at the event and to go, okay, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I think it's good for all of us to have a little heart check once or quarter or once a year where we're like kind of investigating our own heart of why are we doing what we're doing? Where is our heart at? Where's our brain? Where are we? And making sure that we're still doing it for the right reasons. I think people are often surprised how excited I still am about the music that's coming out. I just am. I mean, I heard a new song yesterday that was making me weep that one of our writers wrote, and I just, it may or may not get cut. I don't know, but that song spoke to my heart. These songs are not just for the churches. They're not just for other people outside of these walls, but they're also for me. And I think that's something that we need to be mindful. It's not just for you all out there, but it's for me as well. I love hearing all the stories of what God's doing in those songs. It's
Hmm.
amazing. I say it often, and I really honestly mean it. It is an honor to still be doing what I'm doing after all these years. There's been so many amazing moments, both in Christian industry and I worked in the country world for a while, and the relationships that I've built, just as an encouragement to anyone listening, whatever role that you are in, relationships are key. Do whatever you can not to burn relationships, not to burn bridges, but to build relationships. That's not always easy because we're in a very creative space and there's a lot of emotions sometimes. But I think if we can always come back to prayer, always come back to being the one to say, I'm sorry, or be the one to cheer each other on, not be offended. Offense is so the enemy. He just uses that to like
Hmm. Yeah.
ruin relationships, and you have a choice whether you're gonna be offended or not.
It seems like those like yourself 25 years later have so much respect from other people because they've been someone who's, and I've seen this in you, like just intentional to guard that relational integrity, you know what I mean? And not burn bridges. It's funny, Chad Segura was saying the same thing. Like, you're going to probably end up working together in 15 years.
So true.
He was telling me in hindsight, he has worked with so many of the people that maybe at one point they didn't know if they were going to work together again or whatever.
I used to work with Ben Vaughn, who is now the head of Warner Chappell. And one of the things he and I learned from Gary Overton, who was running EMI at the time, was Gary was never afraid to share information with us. I feel like he probably shared more than he probably should have, but he was doing it to teach us, to train us
Mm,
so that one day we would run our own companies. And I
wow.
think oftentimes we're a little afraid to share because this is mine, this is my contact. And I think we have to be very careful with that because what I love about our little publishing group is we're constantly, hey, this is happening. Did you know about this? Or I heard this person's looking. Maybe we can get our two writers together to, it's so much more fun to do it together as a
Mm,
team than to be, a lone ranger and try to do it on your own. Because when the
mhm.
time for celebrating something great, you're gonna be celebrating by yourself. Like, I would much rather celebrate with a whole crew of people. It's amazing what we do in the industry that we're in, and it's a army, and every single person is needed and important and for a certain purpose. Our industry is definitely not perfect and there's flaws just like in any job. But again, I'm going to say it for me, my job is to call people up and out. My job is to love people where they are, point them to Jesus, and let Holy Spirit do the rest. It's not my job to
Mhm.
judge. It's not my job to save. That's the Lord's job. But my job is to disciple and to mentor and call people up and out in a loving, kind way. That's what I feel like my calling
Mm.
is to just really encourage people.
Speaking of mentoring, if you were to go back to late 90s, mid 90s, Stacey, the secretary climbing her way up or even just getting started at EMI, and you were to sit across the table and have coffee with her now, what would you say?
I would probably just say have fun and enjoy the journey more. I think I was very new and worried and always wanting to just keep the job. And I would say have more fun and enjoy the journey and enjoy the process, and God's going to work it all out. Dale Matthews, he was my boss at Brentwood Benson, and I'm a fun person, but I think back then I was probably way more serious.
Mm,
He would always say, just enjoy, have fun. Let's enjoy these moments. I feel like this last half of my time in the industry has been more about the joy and remembering the fun that we've had and all the songs that have made impact in people's lives.
well, I hope you feel empowered out there. Thanks again, Stacey.
Thank
And
you for having me. It was
yeah,
so much fun.
absolutely.